Welcome back, everyone, to Red Spotlight Entertainment, the show that brings you everything coming out of the world of movies and more, either movie reviews or movie news. Evidently, even though it makes us completely depressed, we're still here to talk about that. I'm Alexis, of course, and I'm joined today by David Francisco, who has become the hardest working person to have ever graced this podcast. And then also, I am joined by Peter Martinez, and I'm sure he'll appreciate this, the individual with the single greatest track record out of anyone in existence as far as being proven correct.
All right.
Does that you have your seal of approval as far as an introduction is concerned?
It could be a little better, but
I mean, okay. I mean, sometimes I feel, we have differences of opinion, of which you will remind me, of course, that it's not so much an opinion as long if it comes from you, it's fact. So,
yes,
I want to make sure we have that cleared up. So, it is September 2024. The last time we came here, yes, that's accurate. The last time we came here, we discussed Alien Romulus and Furiosa, a Mad Max saga.
That is true.
In the time since I had gone back and watched the entirety of the Mad Max saga by George Miller.
Oh, wow.
For the first time, I went back and watched the original 3 films with Mel Gibson. And,
your favorite actor.
In the spirit of, once again, proving Peter correct, you are remarkably apt when you say how each film is very different than the last. I was just, not that it was completely different, but there was very stark differences to them. I mean, of course, the main one is how they're all filmed, how they're all shot. The editing, the style is just, it's a complete evolution from one to the other. And that, of course, is to say nothing how the deeper you go into the franchise, the more realized you see the image that George Miller had in his mind for this world. To me, of course, I jumped into this world in 2015 with Fury Road. I watched Furiosa. And so to go back and watch the originals was like, whoa, interesting, okay. It's definitely a trip, but I feel like I can see now more the love, in addition to what I already understood, of Fury Road. Fury Road really was like the culmination of the world finally fully realized. Although, of course, beyond Thunderdome, I think Thunderdome, went even, like, every film goes even further.
It goes deeper with each film, yeah.
I was just amazed when I watched the 79 film, the first Mad Max. The world still hadn't completely ended.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah,
whoa.
It's not quite mad.
No. They have technology still. There's like phones and TVs, and like it's like a little bit jarring. It's like, am I watching the right movie? That's how it feels like, because when you watch Fury Road and Furiosa, and then you go back to that, and I'm like, what?
It's
and then,
so
of course,
unbelievably tame compared,
right? Yeah, and then at some point it becomes a John Wick film. So it's interesting. They're very obviously fun films. They're interesting movies. And then we go from the first one, and then the Road Warrior, and then some of the designs are like, wow. The way, the whole thing about Mad Max and how it evolved into what it was every step of the way. Those designs are just kind of like, they're bold, and somehow, on their own, they're kind of silly, but as a piece, they really do work well. Like, I don't recall the name of the Road Warriors villains.
The twink villain?
Basically. I was like, wow, that's a pretty good description for it. And then you could see more so in Beyond Thunderdome, that climactic final chase sequence. I was like, whoa, this is like a really good like preview of Fury Road, which is what the whole film would end up being, basically.
You could tell, like, he just had an idea, and it just kept getting refined and refined with each film. And I think that's why, when Mad Max came out, people were like, wow, like, he was really, ruminating on this shit for, like, 30 years. And then it kind of exploded on screen. And I think Furiosa was his ability to, like, bring those slower elements of the earlier films and really just take his time and sort of tell that slow mythic tale that I think he always wanted to. And like you said, because you've seen it, you sort of see that with his other films, including 3,000 Years of Longing.
It's no accident that came between Furiosa and Fury Road.
Yeah.
And from what I remember seeing an interview of his, 3000 was a film he was trying to make for years and years and years, as is the story of every movie he wants to make. It takes a very, very long time. But one of the things and I know that movie's been brought up. It's an interesting film to just think about and watch. But Idris Elba and Tilda Swinton had been attached to the film for like the whole time, and that never changed.
That's crazy, because a lot of times you'll see it's like it changes actors like 20 times.
Yeah,
a
for
film's
sure.
Sort of ruminating for that long.
Yeah, it's because, like, for example, The Penguin came out, and apparently Mark Strong has replaced John Turturro as Carmine Falcone because Turturro had scheduling conflicts. So it's like that stuff happens all the time.
That's funny. You would think that would have been a bigger announcement, like
but I guess no one cares. We'll talk about that in a bit. But the world of Mad Max, the mind of George Miller is crazy, and it actually kind of makes me feel retroactively sad that he didn't get to have the Best Director win at the Academy Awards. I remember both you and I, Peter, were in this room, and we watched that Academy Awards, and we saw Mad Max win Oscar after Oscar after Oscar, and we were both thinking, and I'm sure you go back in the video, our reaction, we were both thinking, like, is there a chance they actually give it to George Miller? Because people were talking about this might have been a chance to give him the career Academy Award.
That career win, yeah. It should have been.
And honestly, I feel like it's kind of insane how that didn't happen. And it went to... Who did it go to?
Who did it go to? I don't remember.
Can you remember? We were like... I mean, I should tell you everything. Like we look back almost like what 10 years ago. We think about who it should have gone to, but we can't recall who it won. Don't tell me it was The Revenant.
Oh, you know what? It was. It was
Alejandro Inarritu, right?
Inarritu,
yeah.
Amazing director, but it's like it's one of those things. Again, I do think there is a genre bias in the Oscars. They'll definitely nominate some good genre films, but it's always about like we'll give you the technical wins, you know, but we're not going to give you anything more than that unless
like Dune Part 1 won 5 Oscars, but it didn't get anything in the major or much less nominated. I mean, Dune got 10 nominations, except it didn't get the 11th for directing for Denis Villeneuve.
That's the thing. I guess there's this weird correlation where it'll get everything but directing as far as noms. And it's weird. It's crazy because, and to me, that's a sign that they're not taking it seriously. Like, we'll give you the technical awards. Like, technically, it's, you know, looks pretty and stuff like that, which it does. But, it's also a great piece of filmmaking. And I think a lot of times it's not viewed in that way, which it should be. Because I'd put Fury Road against any other film made that year as best film.
Or any year.
Yes.
That's how good it is. The Revenant was a wonderfully directed movie, but I hardly...
for sure.
I hardly felt, I guess, again, in hindsight, But looking back on it, Alejandro had already won the year before for Birdman.
Yeah. And
If
Birdman
you
was the
remember.
better film.
A much better movie.
Yeah.
Like, Birdman's a lot better than The Revenant. The Revenant, it's funny that The Revenant gave Alejandro his second Oscar for directing, and it gave Leo his first Oscar for acting. But that film is just kind of,
It's I'm not as crazy about it as I think a lot of people were. But even then, even now, I don't know if many people are like, I don't know if it's not that it hasn't stood the test of time. I think everyone still thinks it's a great film. It definitely is. I just don't know if it's had maintained the same love, I guess, in that way. I like it. It's just it's an experience film, I think.
Yeah.
Reminds me a little bit of Dunkirk.
Yeah, that's the thing too. I know, David, you like Dunkirk quite a bit. The thing that kept me at a distance was just it was just that I was just missing a story and characters, to me anyway. I know that Harry Styles, Barry Keoghan, they're in that movie. So is Mark Rylance. Love all those guys.
Boo.
Didn't. And speaking of
Boo.
that was the same year Mark Rylance stole Sylvester Stallone's Academy Award for supporting actor. Let's just be real about that.
A robbery.
Dang. Oh shit.
Yeah, that all happened the same year.
That sucks.
Yeah, hey, but the Golden Globes gave Sylvester Stallone
Fuck the Golden Globes. Who
What do you
cares
mean, fuck
about
the Globes?
Golden
Love
Globes?
the Globes. They're the only ones that gave Sylvester Stallone a damn thing. You should thank them for actually giving the time to recognize him and his amazing
Actors
performance.
Don't care about getting a Golden Globe.
Okay, sure. All right. Then why do they show up every year? To collect their
To
prizes.
get drunk.
They can do that anytime. Come on.
No, they show up to try
for
and
publicity.
get that Oscar.
It's for
That's
publicity.
what they do.
That's what it is. Yeah. But there's that still means they care on some level. You know what's an interesting thing? You brought up the Globes real quick. Who was the comedian who they hired, David? What's her name? Nikki? Is it Nikki or who was it?
Oh,
I keep forgetting. Let me look it up real quick. But can
You
you talk about her? You saw her. She apparently was the most well received comedian at the roast of Tom Brady.
yeah. She was just hilarious.
Oh.
Basically, just hitting on him the whole time and all that. But like, she
I
had
know
some
who you're
good jokes
talking
in.
about.
Oh, you know her, Peter.
No, yeah, she's funny. She's real funny.
Mm-hmm. But
Oh, they hired her?
No, for real. Like they hired. It says here. This was. I didn't share it with you
Nikki
because you would have
Glaser.
just trolled. Yeah, Nikki Glaser is going to be hosting the 82nd Golden Globes.
She's gonna have some good stuff. That'd be great.
She said that I'm absolutely thrilled, and it might get me canceled.
Got it.
I mean, that was a
No,
joke.
because-
That's a joke. She wasn't
I
being
know,
serious. That was a joke.
No, but I do think she'll have some some good jokes, some good singers.
I think I saw a clip of her monologue, I guess you could say, at the roast, and I'll just say this: I feel like it's kind of too good of a choice. Like, I can't believe they picked somebody this well equipped and well adjusted. Because I'm sorry, the Globes, they're the best when you have a person like that roasting everybody in that room. When you had Tina, and Amy, and then you had Ricky. I think she falls perfectly in that kind of vein. And I don't think you saw the broadcast this year, Peter, but I'm sure you remember how the reviews were for Joe Coy and how just terrible it was.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
That was a travesty. And so, hey, this I'm hoping this will be. I mean, you can't do any worse than Joe Coy, so you can already put money on it that it will be better this time around. But anywho, so much is what we were saying here. I wanted to just go ahead and inform everybody that today we are going to actually be talking about Beetlejuice, Tim Burton, our feelings of the film, as well as some other crazy stories happening right now in the world of movies. This took a long time to get here, but this is our intro. This is going to be Red Spotlight number 490. Cue Peter's Disgust. There we go. There it is. All right. 490.
Disgusting.
Yep.
All those wasted hours.
Well, the first official broadcast of the show was on September 14th. I want to say 2014.
I thought you were going to say September 11th, 2001.
No. That's no.
No.
And here we are. We're recording this on September 20th, 2024. So.
Disgusting.
Yeah. It's been over 10 years since the first episode went online. So in case anyone wondered about that. And then, of course, for those of you who stay tuned to the programming on this channel, of course, the Shield reactions are going regularly. We just finished... 20 is a number. We just finished the 20th episode of the first season, Nothing Personal. So keeps an eye on that one. And then we also did our movie reaction to As Above, So Below, which had its 10th anniversary this year. A horror film that was much loved, you could say, by David and Sergio. And so they joined us for a reaction. They had all seen it. I watched for the first time. They caught it on camera. And David, you've been editing that, and you said we got some pretty good reactions?
Yeah, there are some pretty good ones. You got a few, I think maybe 2 jump scares. Alice always freaking out.
Yeah, she was stressed. She was stressed in the first 5 minutes. So...
Did you catch the demonic image in Alexis's screen?
What?
Hmm.
Oh, come on. Let's not do this. Let's not play this game. So that's where we're at. There's a lot of ways we can start off the show today, but I think it's most appropriate considering the fact that the last time David and I did a podcast, we called the show, that title was 3,000 Years of Sorrow, because it was more so just...
that could be your autobiography.
Seriously. It was... I even told David before we hit the record button, we had planned a different show. Alexis was supposed to be there, and we were going to talk about some other things, and it didn't work out. And so I threw out that show, and I warned David, I know this is not what we said we were going to do, but this is going to be a complete therapy session. And you can argue all
I think
podcasts
he's used to you,
Yes, he is. And I'm happy he is, because
we should be billing you.
Well, billing me for my therapy?
Yes.
Oh, man. But you guys aren't licensed. It's not fair.
It's still hours of our lives.
Okay, whatever. But anyway, we talked for about 2 hours about a lot of our really just down blue feelings on where movies and the movie industry is. We even went into a whole half hour about how it's even changed to us going to the movies. It's an interesting discussion to listen to. Well, what I took away from it was David has noticed a difference in terms of the audiences in California versus the ones in Arizona. Not for the better. Mm-hmm. So I feel like that's a little bit
bunch of goddamn hippies in California. Am I right?
It's a lot for sure. So yeah, that was the show we did last time. So I feel like today, though, let's keep the mood up a little bit. We talked a little bit about George Miller. Let's talk about
9/11.
Yes, 9. Let's talk about Bong Joon-ho and Robert Pattinson and Toni Collette and Mark Ruffalo and that incredible and Steven Yeun in that incredible trailer, Mickey 17, that'll be I believe released in theaters on January 31st, 2025. There's a lot to say about this trailer. I'm just gonna say this, not just this, but at the very top. After watching that trailer, I think it makes perfect sense how the entire brain trust at Warner Brothers deduced that it was not a viable contender for the Academy Award, so they dumped it off. I think it makes perfect sense that David Zaslav didn't believe in the movie. I think it makes perfect sense that both Jeff Snyder and Grace Randolph didn't like the trailer. And I guess to the person who may not know me, may think that I agree with all those individuals. No, my statement is I feel it's even more vindicating how all of those individuals and institutions that I mentioned, their brains have been rotting and they are hardly ever right because they're just fucking insane. Of course, those people would not gleam on or have a fucking clue about how incredible this was and how perfect this was. I'm sorry, but if a film like Everything Everywhere All at Once can win Best Picture, this could have been also a contender as well. The fact that this movie is not being talked about or even included in the lineup for what's going to be the best of the best is insane enough to begin with. But the idea that they're going to give it a shanty, like, cast-off month, like January, to release this thing also tells you and reminds you, David Zaslav isn't a movie guy. He's a what's the network? What's the show? 40 Day Fiance person. That's
TLC.
TLC. That's all he knows. This is the person who believed with all his heart that The Flash was the best movie ever made, and they bent over backwards to keep Ezra Miller, and they bent over backwards to like dump even more film to release it.
They pulled all the stops for that.
They pulled all the stops, and they swore they believed it, and the PR was because they believed it as a film. It was too good of a film to throw away. And then it came out, and it was one of the worst pieces of shit we've ever seen. And that is saying something, because we've seen some big turds throughout these last 10 years. And on top of that, he never made one peep about Barbie. And I'm pretty sure it's because he didn't believe that would ever be the phenomenon that it was. And by the way, those two happened in the same year, which should single-handedly, just remind all of us what an idiot Zaslav is, on top of him being a monster and a corrupt asshole. And then when we get to Snyder and Randolph, they love movies and they love to cover the game and the industry and the reporting. But they have some takes that are just, I'm sorry, dumb. And I know them very well. I know their tastes in film, I should say, very well, based on what they like and don't like. And this very much rubs them the wrong way. And look, Randolph always has her things. Like, if she had a really extreme, angrily reaction to Poor Things, the movie that is right behind you, Peter.
Yeah.
I can't for the life of me understand or fathom. Like, she was offended on a personal level, on a spiritual level, the existence of Poor Things and what it was doing. And then Jeff Snyder's just dumb. I mean,
he's an entirely different breed of
humanity. Yeah, it's just what it is. I watched this trailer, hilariously enough, for the first time with the sound off. Not because I chose to seek it out. It ended up being an ad that played on my TV, and I'm like, oh, here's a trailer for that movie Peter sent. Let's watch it. And then I was too lazy to get my remote and turn off the mute, so I just watched it in mute.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And I thought it was pretty spectacular, even with the sound off. And then, of course, I watched it with the sound on various times. We even watched it just before we went on here to record. And this is just kind of crazy. This is too good of a film. This is the kind of film that some executives would at least stand up for and believe in. And now I think it's pretty emblematic of where we're at. How the powers that be have just unanimously decided this is just trash and no one's going to be interested in it, and it's too weird and too kooky that most audiences are not going to bother with it. So they've made the bet, put it in January, and let's forget it ever happened. That's overall how I feel, but of course, Pattinson is a chameleon. He's incredible. The voice is perfect. I heard it and I'm like, oh God, that's so good. That's so good. Also, visually, it's perfect. Like, it tells a story. Again, I was watching it with the sound off. The visuals are incredible. The effects look spectacular. The cinematography already. It's just kind of like, no notes. Like, no notes at all. David, and then Peter.
No, yeah, I agree. Pattinson's like the standout in this trailer. You mentioned the voice. Dude's just a good voice actor. He just keeps getting better at it. And I hope he does actually.
Mahito.
Exactly.
I gotta hope he does more just animated stuff or something because he kills it. And yeah, I mean, just Bong Joon-ho, like you can't go wrong with him. That he's gonna tell like some meaningful story in his movies and all that, but also just be entertaining at the same time. So, well, at least this one seems like you're gonna be laughing a lot in this movie at the very least. So yeah, I'm excited.
I would say also, hey, I'm sure they showed off a lot of the funny bits, and it's gonna be humorous. But and this is also just I come on, this is Bong Joon-ho. The guy does sci-fi and humor really well, but he tells pretty devastating stories. Like that's not going to be like that's definitely going to be a part of this as well. Like I don't know why people just all of a sudden are going to forget that he likes to have like yeah, he has humorous tendencies and you know, he goes into sci-fi, but he can and when he wants to hit you like a gut punch. And I don't know why people all of a sudden are just like forgetting that. And I don't know. I haven't seen too many reactions. And Peter, when you get to your thoughts, I don't know if you can chime in and what you have observed as far as what the reception has been to the trailer. But again, it's just like movie executives looking at this and like not believing it. Yeah, that makes sense for where we're at today. Your feelings, Peter?
In today's sense, yeah, it makes sense. As executives will look at this and like, how do I market it? But that's because executives suck at their job now. Like they don't try. I've talked about this. Like, we're gonna use AI and algorithms to replace all these, lower level jobs. But it's like,
yeah,
those people
no, what
actually.
What a wonderful idea! Let's actually do that, but let's take away their jobs first. Because they're the most useless people in the entire business.
They are. Because all they do is just run off based off everything that's been proven to work in the past. They look at algorithms, they look at numbers, and then just do that. There's no like... It's like, okay, we're going to do that. We can just put an algorithm in, and then it'll tell us what movies to make, and we'll go based off that. Because if that's what you're doing, like, why do we need to pay you to have a yacht when we can just, pay no one and just put in the algorithm and then pick movies based on that and do decisions based on
And
that?
if you think about it, like AI would be an improvement in this sense. AI, with it being artificial, is not going to be too concerned about the exact figures on their bonuses or their salaries. And think of the money that can be saved for that.
Yeah. Take all those bonuses and put it towards making more movies.
There was an article recently in the New York Times that had a really deep dive into the fallout between Chapek and Iger. And in one instance, it was floating around the idea that Iger had a condition of like, I'll come back, but I don't want to have a salary because I don't want people thinking that I came back for the money. But then the board made him take a $30 million salary. And we're like, poor Bob. They only stuck. But then earlier on, there was a point in the article where it said that he got pissed off that he was only making 30, 40 some million. But then Les Moonves of CBS was making like twice that.
Yeah, it's just...
And by the way, this comes off of, I believe I read earlier today that Elon Musk is well on his way of becoming the first trillionaire in existence.
Once you make a certain above a certain threshold, I don't even know it's fair to call you human.
I think that's Bernie Sanders 4 years ago on the debate stage said, I believe billionaires shouldn't exist. He got asked that question. He's like, yeah, they shouldn't exist.
Morally, I don't see the use for him, but yeah. But
and by the way, neither does Bong Joon-ho. So just
yeah. No, if you've seen pretty much any of his films, you would walk away with that impression, and you very much see it in this film as well. I love Bong Joon-ho films, and the thing is, again, there was a point where I think it would be so easy to market his types of films because they're very accessible.
Yeah.
Like, they're well made, incredible films, but they're not inaccessible. They're very accessible. Parasite, it's kind of, I can see it, executives being like, man, how do we market this? But once it's in front of an audience, it's a good time. Like, it's interesting, it's exciting, it's funny, it's heartbreaking. Like, it hits.
I mean, it was
all
so
the
good of a
emotional
film. Look,
quadrants.
if a film is able to somehow, if a film like that, I should say, is able to somehow win Best Picture, that tells you that the normie, old boomer Academy voters loved it themselves.
Yeah.
And if they loved it, I mean, mainstream audiences will love it because they love Bohemian Rhapsody and Green Book, who were the two finalists of 2018.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. But I look at Mickey 17 and it's like, I don't, like, a movie like this didn't used to be so hard to, like, put in front of an audience and make good money.
No.
It just looks like good, well-made, fun sci-fi. And I think of, old sci-fi films like RoboCop or or Total Recall with A-list, actors like Arnold Schwarzenegger. Like, that's something you could throw in front of an audience and have it become a big fucking hit. And as I'm sure Mr. Soto will force us to talk about a little later, the state of where we are right now it's pretty depressing as far as original films and what you can see become a hit. I mean, based off the trailer, I really loved it. I really, really loved it. And I'm really hoping that it is financially successful.
I feel the same way as well. But I also do want to stress, another one of the topics I force you all to have a discussion about is the fall festivals and the award season and everything.
Oh, yeah.
I've been taking a look at what is being considered the top contenders, and I have to tell you, it just seems like more of the same. And then Mickey 17 comes, and it's like, can we have that instead right now? Instead of The Brutalist or this amazing immigrant story. Like, I'm sure it's great.
Fuck immigrants.
No, that's not what I'm saying. No, that's not what I'm saying at all. My family are immigrants.
Take it in a different direction.
No, not at all. That's not what I was doing at all. And people who say fuck immigrants can go to hell. But then again, that's no. I'm not gonna get sidetracked. No, I'm not gonna get sidetracked. What I'm saying is Mickey 17.
Told half of the country to go to hell.
Mickey 17 looks like an incredible piece of cinema, and like Beetlejuice, and like 3,000 Years of Longing, and Challengers. I mean, I don't know what they have in common, but they're all, I think, to me, what I think of cinema. And Mickey 17, just by that trailer, I mean, I have not been excited by it.
If it was the 90s, Challengers would have been in the top 10 box office of the year.
Yeah. And the thing is, Challengers barely missed making $100 million at the domestic box office, but it was still considered a hit, which should tell you how low, expectations have fallen. And the thing about Challengers, interestingly enough, we're recording this on the same week that it only just went on streaming. Streaming and it's on a streaming service now if you have a paid subscription to Prime Video. But one of the controversial things is they released, for me, controversial. I don't know if it was I think it was MGM. They released Challengers on digital video on demand 2 weeks after it was released in theaters.
Yeah, that's the bullshit that we're talking about that's really killing movie theaters, right? I think...
And movies.
Yeah, I think they've just conditioned audiences so much to be because I'll see people pissed off, a movie comes out in theaters and they're like, why can't I see it yet? And it's I remember...
What?
Yeah, I remember when a movie would come out and you'd have to wait goddamn a year for it to come out on DVD and Blu-ray or something like that. That was just the fucking wait.
And we were fortunate enough because
And then even longer if
well, in the time
HBO
before
or
us,
something.
in the time before us, there was VHS, and if there would be a guaranteed VHS copy, and how long that would take. But that's the before times.
And now people are like losing their minds. It's like, it's been a month. Why isn't it on? Why can't I watch it on digital? And it's like, fuck you. Go to the movie theaters if you want to see it.
I go through that with my dad. He doesn't like get mad or anything, but like every time I mention, oh, you should watch this, but it's in theaters, he goes, oh, we're like, where's it at? But he's talking about streaming. Like it just his mind just immediately goes to like, okay, what streaming service is it on? But I'm like, no, it's in theaters. Like you have to go.
That's the perfect example though, because I'm sure your dad, he's a regular guy. You know, that's like your average audience member, right? And it is that thing of like, with the thought he's having, I've seen that so much too with like just regular everyday people that aren't obsessed with movies the way we are, not fucking weirdos. That's sort of the condition now. Like audiences have been conditioned to be like, oh yeah, I heard that movie's coming out. Where can I stream it? You know, where can I rent it? And that's something the studios did, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that it's such a large self-inflicted wound, I think.
Incidentally, today, there was a report that came out about large theater chains are planning to invest over $2.2 billion to upgrade over more than 21,000 movie screens, which would include sound, enhancements in sound, dining, projection and seating experiences, and then some theaters would add other amenities like pickleballs, zip lines, and bowling alleys as entertainment options. And I feel like this is a strategy that they're going to be employing now. It's like, well, if streaming is just too much, if streaming and with, you know, everybody having a really good TV has caught up, and if people are now thinking that it's even superior than going to the big screen, well, maybe just make the screen even bigger and make the seating even more comfortable, which can, I think, be a plus.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this: seating, I don't think matters.
No,
I don't think people care as much as you would think, but screen, yes, I think if they massively expand IMAX theaters,
they need to do that.
I think that's something where I would agree with Grace Randolph. That's something she always complains about.
Yes,
and it's true because that's the one thing I think you can get people to get off their ass and like go to a movie theater and see it, because especially if it's a big, you know, visual film. A lot of people are like, yeah, I got a big screen, you know. But if you do IMAX, I know a lot of people. I mean, of course, we're not, like I said, we're fucking weirdos when it comes to this shit. But there's been a lot of times where it's like we've driven to try and go see films in IMAX because that's something that we think would be worth it.
Right.
And if we're willing to drive a couple of hours to try and do that, when it's not even like 100% true IMAX.
Exactly.
I think your regular individual would be willing to go to their local movie theater to go if there was an IMAX. You know what I mean? Like, relative, if the shit we're willing to do is up here and the shit they're willing to do is down here. If we're willing to drive 2 hours, they're probably willing to drive 15 to their local movie theater to watch it if there's an IMAX screen. So I think that's everything else. It's like they're trying to Chuck E. Cheeseify it to keep the income flowing. I get it, 100%. I'm not crazy about it, but I think a lot of people come bitching about it. It's like, it's a business, you know?
Yeah.
If throwing in some extra, I don't fucking know, throwing a laser tag on on the corner is gonna keep it afloat, who gives a fuck? But as far as pulling people more into the movie, like actually show up to be there for the movie, I think not even like a fine dining and stuff. It's like, like the shit's overpriced anyways. I think the IMAX thing is like the biggest thing you can do to bring people in that otherwise wouldn't.
The way I think about it is this: because of the time that we're living in, we've already mentioned how people have big TV screens at home that they feel like that's good enough, that the theater isn't that much more special. Well, I think about the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. Television wasn't invented until the 1950s, and even then, people still went to the movies because the TV screen was like, I mean, it was this? Even
Also,
less than
it would take years for the movie to show up on a.
Well, yeah, but I mean, just generally speaking, even for people went to the movies because for a lot of reasons, but the big screen was unmatched. It could not be touched, and maybe a way for them to get back, is to just make massive fucking screens to where your TV can't compete with this.
Yeah. Especially because TVs have sort of hit their limit. You know what I mean? Like, there was a point where it's like that exponential growth of 40-inch, 55, 60, 65. People's houses aren't getting bigger. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. People can't even afford houses, right? So the size of the TV screen isn't going to get bigger. Like, it's kind of hit its limit. Its general limit as far as where it's going to be.
That's a very good point. Best Buy.
Yeah. So if
no salty feelings over that, by the way.
I fuck Best Buy. If you make the screen bigger, I don't think it's that thing where it's like, oh, and then the TVs are going to get bigger, so then you have to make the screen even big. Like, no, like they've hit their limit. If you just go big one more time, and you officially have that over home televisions, and you're good, you know? Mm-hmm. All it takes is this one renovation.
It's a shame that this was announced today and not 10 years ago, because it would have been nice to have seen. Ideally, this will be a process over many, many years. And I feel like maybe if they had made this investment back then, perhaps they'd be better off right now.
They're too busy investing in their streaming services.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of where we were at that particular moment. I do wonder, though. People like to complain about movie theater etiquette. And I know, Randolph, you mentioned her. She also mentions how that has kind of been a factor in people staying home. I don't know if I personally believe that's a really big factor. I know that it bothers me a lot, but I'm a weird movie guy. So of course, when the small, and I'm also pretty like on edge all the time. So when the smallest thing doesn't go my way, I just fall apart. But for most people, I mean, I think most people that go to the movies, unfortunately, they behave like trash, but they don't realize they are trash. But even if they did, they don't care. Common decency is out the window. I don't know if there's any winning in that situation or how much that actually is a factor in people staying home. I know I'm sure some people, they've had a couple of bad experiences and that's why they just stay home and don't go to the movies. But I don't know if it's like a big or the main reason why you don't go. I know personally people perhaps that are like us, which aren't most people, maybe they wait a few days before they go because they know that the undesirable people are going to go there first and ruin it for everybody. So let them go first and then they can have the place to yourself. And I was telling David on the last podcast how I got too comfortable with the post-COVID way of going to the movies where I would have the whole place to myself. And then now I'm just bothered by having too many people nearby to where I purposely sit in areas where I shouldn't anticipate anybody being near me.
Yeah, a movie theater also has the theater audience experience. You're not
which I do not discount, and I feel like in all of the recent experiences I've had lately have accounted for why I had such a good time. That does not mean that they can't become a hindrance to experiencing the film itself. For instance, when and this is becoming a common thing now, people just walk up in there with a fucking baby stroller.
I mean, that's always been a thing. Which is insane to me. Like, if you can't find someone to watch that kid, do something else. like no, because of going to the movie, it's not an activity that you can do with a baby. It just isn't. There's a lot of other things you can do, but
look, it's right now it's just tough to talk a lot about this because, I mean, on the one hand, you want to be lucky, and I am, that we still end up somehow getting movies that we love and are passionate about. Even some that are not as passionate, but I still like. I mean, I really liked King of the Planet of the Apes. I really liked Alien Romulus, and I really, really liked the love Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. We'll get to that. And they're not my favorites of the year. I got a couple more that I think are much better than those. That being said, when you think about the fact how last year things seemed kind of like, for a moment, maybe things are getting a little bit less terrible in the fact that, 10 plus franchises blew up, right? Because people had finally had enough and that they weren't interested in. And then also that there were strikes that were successful in getting a little bit more rights and money for the talent involved. But then we have to understand that we continue to exist in a time where most of the industry workers are grunt men, and that's not going to change. And all the people at top are screwing over the workforce to get their bonuses and destroying films and art so they can get even more bonuses and sinking not just their workforce, their companies, but the industry as a whole. And it's just really hard to not let that get to you. I swear this wasn't planned out in any way whatsoever. But the following day that we did that recording, I shared with you a clip from John Campea, who, by the way, also has opinions who are like, you can go one way or the other. I mean, he said that Beetlejuice was like the worst movie of the year. Of course, he would say that. So, that's how much you should trust his opinion on movies. But he said something to the effect of like, I believe that the story was that AMC was secretly charging customers more for blockbuster films. They were charging them more for movies that were more popular. Which, of course, that's what they would do. And if people found out, they would be really enraged by that. And he was just saying that something that I felt so cathartic, which was, I love movies. I love covering the industry and championing movies, but it's getting to the point where I'm getting ready to just say fuck you to everybody involved.
It can feel that way for sure.
And by the way, this happened the week some pretty unseemly details were put on Variety, I want to say, from the House of Mouse, no less, of course. It's pretty funny how last week the New York Times had this like big piece about how, it was Bob versus Bob, but that whole piece is completely like irrelevant because we're the losers in that whole thing. Like it wasn't Chapek or Iger, we're the losers because what has happened since then? In the last couple of days, it's been revealed that a couple of key individuals, whether they be animators or producers or executives, were fired from Pixar right before Inside Out 2 was released, purposefully to avoid giving them any bonuses. And then, of course, the film becomes the highest grossing animated movie of all time, which I also have to make sure we don't forget this, is the most insane thing out there.
That's so crazy.
It's just... We cannot ever just not acknowledge that. Like, it is crazy how of all the animated films in existence, that's the one that was the most successful from a financial standpoint. And then when you actually watch it, you're like...
Well, it has like no cultural staying power. I didn't see anyone even talk about the movie, really. Like, I remember it came out. I didn't even realize it came out because there was like, like, like there are successful films where it's like, oh yeah, that was big, right? Like when Frozen, it's like, oh my god, every little girl
Joker.
singing.
People were talking about Joker for a long time.
Every little girl singing, "Let It Go" and da 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 da. Yeah, but like Inside Out too. I don't. It just seemed like another movie that came out, and I was like, yeah, it'll be successful. But highest of all time, insane.
Mm-hmm.
But
it
of
makes
course,
no sense.
Every negative business practice that went into that film is now solidified in the eyes of everyone in Hollywood, right? Like that whole expose that came out about making it. It's like, well, this to me, people can be like, oh, look, Disney bad, but it's like it gave them the highest animated film of all time. You think they're gonna fucking change, or are they gonna double down on all the bad practices? They're gonna triple down, quadruple down.
I mean, Bob Iger was basically what? Mr. Waternoose and Monsters, Inc. I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die. That was one of the truest, I think, statements ever made about capitalism.
Years before I let this die.
It's so cruel what happened to those people. I would be upset until my dying days. But then that whole expose about how the fact that the film was rushed. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder why it was rushed. Maybe it's because Bob Iger was panicking and we needed some quick money now. Yeah, that's probably why they were working 7 days a week.
He was proven right.
Yeah.
That's the thing that kills me, right?
Yeah.
Like, we can criticize like crazy everything, but it's like...
It doesn't change the fact that it's disgusting. I know that's not what you're saying, but you are correct.
Yeah,
that
for sure.
The whole practice of him
part
abusing people has been vindicated because of how much money has been made by it. That's the whole part that's just so twisted and kind of evil about it. And then, on top of that, I'll just put it this way. One of the clearest issues that of those of us on this channel that saw the film was the fact that it was unbelievably rushed. Like, when we watched the film, it was like, this is it.
Yeah.
It's not a good film.
You're gonna get that same feeling with Moana, and it's gonna make all the fucking money as well.
Moana 2, which, by the way, this is only a little bit different, is that was a 6-episode series that simply because Bob Iger deemed it so, we need money now. And he gave off the PR reason was, the animation looks too good to be on Disney+. Let's go ahead and put it on. No, he was panicking last year after all of his films bombed. When your highest grossing film, when your second highest grossing film of the last year was the one that was behind Peter right now with Emma Stone, that should tell, that was panicking Bob Iger.
The number one Disney movie of the year.
That was not named Guardians 3, because Guardians 3 was the one successful one from the last year. But he reverse engineered something that was already a show and was written that way. It was written as a show. And now they just glued it together, and it's now voila, Moana 2.
Well, didn't they say like Frozen 3 and Frozen 4 are going to be 2-parters or something like that?
Zootopia
I guarantee you.
Oh, yeah, Zootopia 2 was officially announced in the weeks since then. So it's like,
when all of these announcements were made, there was like zero scripts, zero story ideas.
Zero desire.
Yeah, it was
by
all
any creative
an
to do that
decision.
Yeah.
And then after they made the decision, it was like, all right, go scramble to figure any kind of story you can tell out.
Yeah, so that's all very troubling. But then it gets even worse. How can it get even worse, Alexis? Oh, it got worse. Part of the expose, as Peter was mentioning, was the fact that there were continuous notes from executives that were telling the animators and the producers and the writers to make Riley seem less gay. And here's the thing. What I told David last time was this. It's funny how the go woke, go broke, geeks and gamers, the anti-woke mob people are celebrating this as like, you see, they finally have come around to our side. But I'm like, they were always like that. And this is proof of that. And this is proof that you were always just so full of shit. Like, all of your points have just been thrown out the window. I mean, when you think about it critically.
But I do think there is, again, because they're stupid, this idea of, like, if you can make enough noise...
That's the thing.
Idiots will listen.
Yeah.
Basically. The idea
Which is how conservatives win again and again and again.
Yeah, for sure. This idea that I saw in the article that they felt that the gay kiss in Lightyear somehow contributed to it bombing is fucking insane. Any regular, like, completely, the idea that it in any way substantially contributed to that movie in any way is insane.
I don't know if you made this clear, but that
unbelievably stupid.
In the article, it was referencing that this didn't come from a YouTuber. This line of thinking came from an executive.
That's the thing. That line of thinking did come from a YouTuber.
It did originally. Yeah.
That's the thing. And some... As long as you're loud enough and stupid enough, it will get to executives, and they sort of make decisions based off that. That's so stupid. Lightyear, we always talk about Hollywood taking the worst lessons from failures or successes, and it's true every fucking time. The idea that a 2-second gay kiss contributed anything to Lightyear, even selling tickets or losing tickets, is so fucking stupid. Whoever felt that should lose their job. If anything, they probably got 5 bonuses. Why? Because fucking Inside Out 2 made all the money, and now they're gonna start going through a fine-tooth comb of every film and going like, is this,
suck out the gay?
Are they queering too much here? That's what they're gonna do, because Disney movies on the whole already are fucking, a lot of them are devoid of like anything, like a soul.
Yes.
And they're gonna go even more soulless to be like, we need to try as hard as we can not to have an opinion or say anything, basically. Because this has proven that you shouldn't have an opinion when making a film, so you can reach the highest audience.
Okay. Lightyear
failed because it fucking sucked as a film.
Yeah.
It was a stupid idea. Whoever greenlit it should have been fired. And it was a boring fucking movie.
Yes.
That's why it failed.
Horrendous marketing campaign too, by the way.
Yeah, the trailer sucked.
There's so much to say on what you on this whole thing too. The reality of the matter is, you really can't make this shit up, right? The loudest voices in the room are so loud, and they get their points of view across, that there are enough people that will believe it no matter what, because of how often it's repeated. This last week, the former president was like screaming into a microphone about they're eating cats, they're eating dogs. His VP comes on TV and says, if I have to make up stories like this to get you to talk about this, I'll do that. And then what happens? People actually believe them. And then the Haitian community in that town in Ohio is being threatened, and they had to close schools because of the threats that have manifested because of that. Eating the cats, eating the dogs. That's case in point what happens. And that's how conservatives win. They just distract, and they don't talk about any issues. Now,
more to the lie big enough and hard enough, people will believe you and go along. That's why you can't just sit idly by and just sort of point and go like, it's kind of crazy. You have to like directly attack back.
You have to smack it down. You have to smack it down and deconstruct it, and not like take it lightly. You have to forcibly fight back when these kind of things happen. And then when it comes to Disney, it does seem now that, oh, we're just dealing with a bunch of stupid people at the top because they're just buying the loudest voices in the room. They're literally taking the talking points of the anti-woke mob, and they're using that as their new Bible to dictate what gets made, what doesn't, what's good and what's not. And which means they've bought into the idea, and they've already said this in their like earnings calls or whatever, that the reason for why their films are not doing as well is because they've been focusing too much on messaging. The reality is the films haven't been doing well because the executives and creatives that they hire and the way and their whole mentality of movie making is so ineptly flawed that they're performing disastrously at the box office. Their instincts and their ideas for what audiences want out of movies are so out of step that it's come home to roost, and we saw that happen last year. They don't allow creatives to actually make stories. They're too concerned with... I mean, it's funny how they're focusing now. We need to make stories that are much more universal. You were always doing that. There was never a point in time in which you weren't always concerned about making 4-quadrant films. That's not anything new. In fact, you can make the argument that you were too obsessed with making 4-quadrant films that appealed to everybody, that it appealed to no one as a result of that. You have no one to blame but yourselves, and you also had it too good for too long. You were not meant to be at the top of the totem pole for all of reality, but you just couldn't take it, could you? And so you have to just, we don't know why we're failing, but you know what? These guys on YouTube, I think they have an idea for why we're doing bad. I think they might be right. And look at what happened with Star Wars. We let our creative team make The Last Jedi, and look at how the fan base turned. We have to listen to the fans now. We have to listen to fandom. The fandom has turned on us because they don't want messaging. They don't want progressive politics. They want less representation in movies. And again, it's hard to ignore the fact that just this same week, they fired a female executive from Disney Animation and hired one with a penis. And I'm not saying, by the way, that Jennifer Lee is completely faultless and didn't deserve to be given the boot. I'm just saying the optics there don't look great when you're already on a rampage to prove that we're hardcore right wing now and we're going to make stories less
Sure. But it's that thing, right, where conservatives decided that Disney was going to be a boogeyman, and it worked, right? Because and it's you bring up Springfield, and it's a perfect example of they just simply decided that we're going to be boogeyman, and it worked. People are now being racist as shit towards Haitians, and I guarantee if you were to poll conservatives, a good chunk of them would be like, yes, these stories are true. Because a lot of people have this mentality of well, if enough people are saying it, it has to be true, right? We can blame the executives, but executives have always been kind of stupid. Like the idea that Hollywood
historically,
takes away
yes,
the wrong lessons, that's
nothing
been
new.
True for decades, right? I do think to a certain extent that I see the blame more on just these awful individuals that know if they scream and lie loud enough, they can get movement towards them and the things they want to happen, which are usually god awful and evil.
Mm-hmm. And again, anytime there's a conservative movie in theaters, the anti-woke mob conspicuously doesn't talk about it. Doesn't Matt Walsh have a movie out called Am I Racist? And I'm sorry, I thought movies weren't allowed to have politics in it.
Get your politics out of my movies. Oh, there's a explicitly right-wing political film? We all need to support it. It's so great. Yeah.
Sound of Freedom, anybody?
That's why I always say, like, whenever people are like, oh, this movie's woke, a lot of people like to respond like, no, it isn't. It's not woke. You're crazy. I would just be like, you know what? Yeah, sure. It's the wokest movie that ever lived. And what?
Yeah.
Why is that an issue? Fuck you, you know?
We're going to have a
that's
conversation.
That's the real response that should be had.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to break that down on the next Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. thing, because we got a comment saying about, like, I made a comment on the other day on one of the shows about how S.H.I.E.L.D. is very woke. And evidently some person took offense to that. And I'm going to have to, no, we need to be very clear. S.H.I.E.L.D., like it or hate it, its politics are very clear. They literally use direct Trump quotes.
But see, that's the thing. People, again, it's this thing where like people are loud and angry enough, and without even realize it, people just capitulate to that. Like, to the point where you're arguing and we're like, no, it's not woke. It's not woke. You're inherently arguing that it's a bad thing if it was. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And just by doing that, you're letting a certain group of idiots win.
Here's a question that's really interesting to me.
To me, it's always like, no, yeah, sure. Okay, it's super woke.
I'm pretty sure.
Why is that a problem?
I'm pretty sure there some people who are not that well informed are going to come at it from the perspective of there are sometimes projects that are too focused on message and not focused enough on story, and the message and the focusing on too much on that is the reason for why it failed. Out of the top of your heads, guys, can you name films like that? Like, when was the last? I can't think of too many movies that's the reason why it didn't do well overall as a film. Right? Like, am I crazy to say that?
That has nothing to do with left. And I know you agree, but just the answer to that comment, that has nothing to do with like left-wing politics, right-wing politics, really any single denomination of any political belief. It's just called bad writing. Like, that's all it is. Like, yeah, sometimes films aren't written that well. Sometimes it's the way they get across a message is blunt and stupid, but that has nothing to do with it being a left-wing political belief or a right-wing political belief or anything in between. It's just like, oh, it wasn't written that well. In that case, my critique would be like, oh yeah, it wasn't written as well. And maybe you would say, like, if you were trying to convey the same message, this is how you could write it and still do that. Because I've seen, and I'm sure you have, there are a lot of films out there. Films, if you're not an insane person, it's very easy to see the way that films can run the gambit on a lot of different political, follow along a lot of different political lines. There are films that I would consider to be conservative, quote unquote, in some of its message and political beliefs. And I'm like, oh wow, this is a really good movie. And I really like it because it's a well-made film. And there are other films that are, you know, very much conservative where it's like, oh, this is garbage, right? But the part that's, I would never say a film is inherently bad if just because it has conservative beliefs, you know? I would just say, like, oh, this has bad writing.
Mm-hmm. And it didn't used to be that way. Yeah. You know,
the Reagan movie that came out, it looks bad not because it's conservative. It looks bad because it looks like it's written like shit, you know?
Yeah.
Made like shit.
It didn't used to be this way at all. In recent weeks, I watched the first couple minutes of Michael Moore Fahrenheit 11/9 for the hell of it.
I don't know why you do that. That's insane.
I guess, I don't know. But he included clips of prominent conservative voices like Steve Bannon and Jared Kushner praising his filmmaking. There was even a clip of Steve Bannon saying that, I don't agree with his politics, but he's a damn good filmmaker. That just proof there that that's not something that used to matter until just a few years ago. So, David, your thoughts on any of this?
Oh, I mean, you guys kind of went to good detail. I mean, with Peter said, like, I just hate the idea of, like, you know, this thing went a certain direction, you know, right wing, left wing, conservative. I don't even know the differences between right wing and left wing. Honestly, it's so annoying. I don't bring that up much because I don't know the differences at all.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the only times I got hit on certain points is because this person said that this movie was bad because of this specific thing, and so that's what I try to hit on. And I'm like, I think you're wrong, blah blah blah. But yeah, for me though, it's always the focus on story, and it's so confusing too sometimes. Like recently with The Acolyte, I didn't like the show. I got bored. I didn't really care much about it, and I don't think it really pushed what it was trying to do. You know, it was trying to push the whole Jedi are bad, and you know, there are certain people, Force users, that wish to live freely from it. But I don't know what those Force users wanted to live freely by. But then it also didn't say why the Jedi are bad. It kept telling us that, like, oh, this thing they kept bringing up of, like, something like your ignorance will, like, you know, be the death of you or something like that. Basically, already invoking what happened in the prequels, like how they fell and everything. And it's like, okay, we know how that happens, but like you're not really putting into detail as to why. You know, like at least with the Clone Wars show, you know, it was very obvious that a lot of the Jedi, you know, wanted to keep their place in the higher ups, basically, and all that. Like that's part of the reason, but nothing else. But the Acolyte itself didn't really go into much detail about that, and so that's why I got bored. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and some people got entertained by it. Some people thought it was enough, which is cool for you. But I didn't like it. But then you get people going like, "Oh yeah, Acolyte was super woke," and I'm looking at the show. I'm going, "What exactly was woke about it? Is it because there's people of color? Was it because
that's the part. That's most of the criticism is something is labeled woke if there are too many non-white people on screen. Let's just be real with you. That's what it comes down to 9 times out of 10. If everybody in the cast is something other than white, then it's going to be labeled as woke.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's a pretty clear distinction, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because they dare to hire people of color, of any kind, or people of a different, you know, sexual persuasion or gender identity or whatever have you. If they're included, if they're seen, if they're recognized as people that exist, that is woke. And really, at the end of the day, as we've been saying on the show for years, that's why the people who are angered about that come from a right-wing standpoint, and they come from a place of hatred and evil, which, you know, that's just the truth of the matter. I feel like that's how you can distinguish between left-wing and right-wing. If you're in favor of representation and people being, you know, I don't know, able to see themselves matter on screen, you're left-wing. If, on the other hand, you hate all that stuff and want most things to be centered on men and white guys, you are right-wing. It's as easy as that. That's what it's come down to lately.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just become a sad indictment on the state of affairs that is civilization these days. We have a side that is for acceptance and tolerance, and then there's the other side that wants to keep people downtrodden, and put in their place, and reminded that they don't matter as much as the dominant looking people in the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it all comes down to. But then again, there are the ones on the right. They're also evil for other purposes. They don't care, really, at the end of the day. They're just there to make money. They're just capitalistic creatures.
There are some people that I don't even know how much they believe in shit, but there is a financial opportunity to spout certain things.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Oh, yeah. Oh, for sure. for sure. But I'm not. I wasn't even talking about like politicians. I'm talking
about
like,
just like, you know, the geeks and
all
gamers
those
people. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how much they believe any of. If you've put Brie Larson 5,000 times as an image on your videos, I don't think they give two shits about Brie Larson. I don't think they feel as strongly about her one way or the other, but they know that their audience is like insane, fucking insane, and will lose their shit. And they hate Brie Larson, because she's a woman. It's just fucking misogyny. She made one comment about like, hey, you know, some films are made for certain people, and I would like to see more reviewers, you know, with different representation, and I would like to see if a film is made in mind with like the female perspective, and that's what the movie's about. I'd like to see it, you know, a review from a female, you know. It would be more that, you know, it'd be good to see that.
And then they'll say that she's
and
being
they took
disrespectful, and then start complaining about it.
Yeah,
And then
it's
they're
really
trying
just
to seem as the strong ones, but then
Yeah.
when we go and
it's
complain
any
about something,
excuse
we're little
to
bitches.
hate. Yeah, it's any excuse to hate.
Mhm.
Really, that's what.
Couple of things real quick. Incidentally, of course, I saw this interview today. Joe Locke, who plays, I believe, Wiccan on Agatha All Along, said that Kevin Feige asked him once who his favorite Avenger was, and he responded with Black Widow. And Feige's immediate response was, "Huh, nobody says that."
I mean,
Yeah, but that's
because they did
interesting.
a shit job with her character.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I wanted to say. The other thing is, we talked about also about Disney, but of course this also pertains to the new priorities and I guess the new diagnoses that people are just now coalescing around, that Marvel and Star Wars are also bad because they focus too much on messaging and they focus too much on woke politics, whatever that is. No, they suffer for the same reason that Disney suffers, just incompetent filmmaking. Their approach to making movies is flawed, and it's not flawed. It's fundamentally broken and has resulted in just disastrous project after disastrous project. But people are too stupid to see that, and so they listen to the loudest voices saying black people are the problem, women are the problem, hate them, and they're like, okay, we'll do that. Because at the end of the day, what they want most is, we want to love Star Wars again. We want to love Marvel again. We want to love Disney again. And if we have to throw a couple of minorities off the boat, why not? Let's go ahead and do it. Sorry if that sounded a bit angry. Oh, and I was trying not to.
That's your whole life. What are you talking about?
But that's yeah, basically. And then real quick to wrap it up, I don't see what is really going to change by having Jared Bush, that's his name, right? Replace Jennifer Lee. Jared Bush is the person who co-directed Zootopia and directed Encanto. He's now been put in charge of Disney Animation, and Jennifer Lee is not fired on paper. She's directing Frozen 3 and 4. But here's the thing. What does this gain? Bob Iger is calling the shots. He made the decisions about Inside Out 2 and now Moana 2 in quotation marks. Like, what the hell did Jennifer Lee have to do with that? And for that matter, what does Mr. Bush have to do with that? Like, they're just figureheads. They don't do anything, really. Bob Iger is now fully in charge and demanding all of these sequels. So, do you guys see what was the need for this, aside from the fact that people were calling for her to be fired because I guess people don't like her?
It can look good to like a board to be like,
oh yeah,
you need to have heads roll if you're losing money, right? So you need to be able to go to investors and say, hey, remember how we kind of lost you money on these ventures? We're doing a shakeup. You know, things are looking good towards the future, yada, yada, yada. Business, 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 basically.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine and dandy when the reality, of course, and of course, I understand that business politics does not work in reality. They work in fantasy made up figures in which dehumanizing the workforce is their number one priority, and making sure that they are blameless in everything is their number two priority. Understanding that, of course. I'm just amazed at the amount of pundits in this space that give them the benefit of the doubt when they make these decisions, when in reality, the reason why Disney Animation and Pixar Animation is suffering theatrically is because Bob Chapek and everyone on that board supporting him in putting their films on Disney Plus. It broke everything. I don't like that is the reason. And yet somehow a lot of these pundits are like, well, the films weren't that good. Some of them were not that good. But there were a string of them that were very, very much theater worthy and are beloved. And by the way, did amazing numbers on Disney Plus. So you can't say, oh, the film isn't popular. If you say Luca isn't popular, if you say Turning Red's not popular, if you say Soul's not popular, you're a fucking dumbass. That's not what happened. The problem is Disney themselves destroyed the viability of the theatricality business to be made of their own animated films because they made Disney Plus. I mean, we all know that. We've been saying that. But instead, they're like, you're fired. There, all our problems are solved.
I mean, that's the way business has always run, though. Like,
yes, and that's true. But that's also further proof as to why it's always been bullshit. But yeah, that's just the way of things. Okay. Let's power through these next real quick. There has been a lawsuit filed against Disney for Rogue One's necromancy technology. Is that going to go anywhere? And why did it take so long?
It's a non-story.
Mm-hmm.
It's a non-story.
It's not even being sued by the family. It's being sued like a friend of the actor. Like, yeah, fuck off. Like, it's not gonna make it to trial or anything.
That being said, I find it interesting how you and I just had this review on Alien Romulus when they use this technology to effect, let's just say, to bring back an actor. That is just one aspect of how things are getting more icky and gross as the years go by. Is that going to get any better, or are we just...
No, it's going to get exponentially worse.
Okay.
I know some people are like, well, if they have the sign-off of the family, like, it's okay. It's just gross to me in general.
Yeah.
You know, I've just come to terms with it's just not something I like.
Yeah.
No. And it doesn't look good still.
And yeah, it's not even like, oh man, it looks amazing on screen, but morally I can't. It's like it's not even a good effect. It's never well done. I don't know a single instance where just having an actor there that somewhat resembles the original wouldn't be infinitely better every single time.
Right.
It's just a negative all around. Any aspect I try to think about it, I just come out going like, yeah, I just hate this. I just think it sucks. So
Okay.
even when families get a sign off, it's like, eh.
All right. Next one. Jeff Snyder got in a, I guess, titsy fit with the team at Spider-Verse. Him saying that they had scrapped the film and were beginning all over again, and then everybody on the team were like, that's not happening. I don't know when that movie is happening. I think we all care about the fact that you can take as long as you want, so long as you make the best thing you can make. I mean, we have high hopes for Beyond the Spider-Verse. I don't care how long it takes. Am I mad that I can't see it now? Yes, but I'll get over it when I see it eventually and I see a great film. Do we believe Snyder? Who do we believe? Is there any realistic idea that they scrapped it?
I mean, if you look at the past, as far as the way that those two guys work, it's not the most far-fetched idea that
Right.
that they just one day walked in and scrapped it and that's it. Who cares? I don't know. The more interesting aspect is the way Snyder gets really pissed off
Yeah.
whenever people deny his story, and it's like,
Yeah.
if you're gonna be the scoop game, you got to realize that people are gonna deny it,
Mhm.
and he like loses his shit, like, oh my god, they're denying what I just said, like, yeah,
Grace
you-
doesn't care about it anymore these days. I mean, she thinks she's come to terms with it when she has her scoops, but she doesn't do scoops much anymore.
she
I
doesn't
think she's
scoops
kind
anymore because
she-
people deny it, and it's
Yeah.
like, if you're gonna do scoops, you have to come to the terms with people are just gonna flat out deny it, even if it's true.
Mhm.
And if you're gonna be doing the scoops, all you have to do is be like, hey, I stand by my reporting. Like, they can deny it, that's fine. I know I have the evidence to back up that this is an accurate story. I have the sources that I trust. And you just have to roll with it. And if you're not willing to do that, then don't fucking put out scoops, you know? It's just weird.
I have
the way
noticed that
people react.
Randolph lately has really just been. She knows them. She gets scoops still, but she doesn't share them anymore.
No, she's literally said, I'm not doing it anymore.
Yeah.
Because of the blowback. But it's like, that's part of the game. Like, I don't know what to fucking tell you. It's like
Mhm.
reporters, you know? They'll come out with a story and be like, hey, these anonymous sources are telling me this about this politician. And then what's the politician do? They deny it. Like, it's what it is. I don't know what to tell you.
Remember, one of the first weeks of the Trump administration was Ben Smith, I believe, of BuzzFeed, reported about the PP tapes. Golden
Yeah,
showers.
the PB tapes.
You don't know that, David? You don't know what I'm
I
talking
think
about?
I heard about it, but I don't.
The golden showers. Oh, you should look that up. That was a fun time. I mean, no, it wasn't a fun time. That was just a fun story. That was a terrible time to be alive. Okay, next one. Is A24 acquiring too many movies? They acquired The Brutalist and Queer. Those are two Oscar contenders. Last year, The Iron Claw got screwed over because A24 had other priorities, and Iron Claw was not recognized for any awards. I'm not sure how much this matters. I guess it only matters if you care about awards, but I don't know. I mean, both of these films are interesting. And I think Queer was talked about as, that's Luca Guadagnino, that was talked about more as experimental. But just to put that out there. By the way, has anyone seen Civil War yet? I haven't. I've
Not
been
yet.
meaning to watch Civil War. I don't know why I haven't
It's on
watched it
Max.
yet. Okay. I'm waiting for you to watch it, Peter, and then to see how it is.
I got quite the list. I don't know if you should wait for me.
Well, yeah, you have quite the list, which, by the way, also includes Wim Wenders' Perfect Days, which, by the way,
See, yes.
right here has been playing in London for 206 consecutive days.
Dang.
So, yeah. It's a great movie. And then the other thing here is Joker 2. It was hilarious how 2 weeks ago, every video I was watching, Joker 2 is going to be the Empire Strikes Back of Joker movies.
Joker movies. Good lord.
And how every one of them was like 10 nominations, 11 nominations, picture, director again, actor again, even though he already won before, actress, like screenplay, everything again. And then it made its debut, I believe, at one of the festivals. Was it Venice? Was it Toronto? I don't even know which one it was. But it made its debut, and it made its presence known like a big, fat turd. And now no one...
Because it went woke. They added a woman. They ruined it. They're
You basically,
stealing our culture.
we will see videos. We will see videos that
Yeah,
say Lady Gaga is the reason for why the film failed. I gotta tell you, I'm somewhat curious in Joker 2, if only for the musical elements alone. And I feel maybe there's a chance I might like this one more than the first one just because of this. Maybe, you never know. I don't expect a good movie. I know that, you know, the first film.
I don't know.
What do you think about that? You know, like I would like to like it. You know, I want to go in walking
wanna
out like, hey, you know what?
every film I ever seen.
Yes, of course. Like, and again, I have negative feelings about the first movie, not because I think it's a terrible film. I don't think it's terrible. I just have I'm a petty bitch, and I don't like the fact that everybody was like the best thing ever. It won all these awards and whatever. But you know what? It wasn't a terrible film.
It's put together okay enough.
Yes, yes.
I find it just kind of a useless film.
I feel
I find it an incoherent film. And I guess that's my problem. Is from reviewers I trust. It's like this film is even more incoherent. Like it really has nothing on its mind. Really.
That's what I heard too. It's like, what are we even doing here?
Like, why is this even a film? Which I mean,
to have, I'm sure Gaga and you know what was funny? I was hearing some reactions. They were saying all the things that you were saying. But funnily enough, that Joaquin Phoenix gives an even better performance this one than in the first one as Joker.
Sure.
Aside from the fact that if we're curious or not, I will say I will celebrate it going down in flames at the box office if that happens. It's not a guarantee, but if it does,
it'll make its budget, which
I'll
I think
celebrate
is the
that.
only important part.
But I'll bemoan the fact that people are going to use either Gaga or the fact that it's kind of sort of not really a musical as part of the reasons for why it went down in flames. And that I don't like very much because I want more musicals. And the fact that this is, by the way, this is not happening in a vacuum. The fact that we had I think Joker 2, the trailers for Joker 2 were making it more obvious that it was going to be a musical element than Universal's trailers for Wicked.
Yeah, they're terrified to say it's a musical, which is crazy because the only reason you made it is because it was like the biggest musical of all time behind Cats. But then again, Cats fucking bombed, so maybe Cats won.
Well, because it looked horrible.
Because it looked like shit.
I mean, this one doesn't
And it
look
was
good either,
shit.
but
We
like,
watched
in
it,
terms of visual effects and everything, but at least they put more of an effort.
They
And I just
released the buttholes. That's
And
why
I
it
just
failed.
realized both Cats and Wicked are by Universal distribution.
Yeah. I mean, maybe don't make musicals. I don't know. If you don't want to, don't fucking do it.
Cats bombed because I think it was, again, too little too late. And then also the trailer was terrible. And
the movie was terrible.
And the movie was terrible, but
And
it
I'm
was a
sure-
fun
feel
time
terrible.
watching it.
The musical kind of sucks too. I think people were just stupid to watch Cats. Like, I'll say it.
I think that's fair. I think that's more than fair. Speaking of musical adaptations, where was Disney with that Hamilton movie? Where did that go?
Yeah, they fucked up. Again, that's one of those things where it's like, do I gotta do it for the executives? Like, if it came out during the pandemic, right, on Disney Plus,
2020.
yeah, I would have
July 2020. 4 years.
immediately-
4 years have passed.
I would have been like, "Oh shit, this is a hit. People are Hamilton crazy. let me quickly throw in production a I was gonna say live action film. I guess just a film. It's already live action. The play, but I would put in a film adaptation for sure, right? And it wouldn't even have to be what's his name,
Lin-Manuel.
Yeah, I would have done it already, like a reverse Newsies.
You could have sold Spielberg on Hamilton.
Yeah, he would. I don't think he would have directed. He would have produced.
No. Yeah, probably. But it's a shame because I feel you should make more musicals. Because West Side Story was, I mean, come on.
Yeah. I don't feel that strongly either way, but I do feel strongly in that. I feel like that's a no-brainer, right? From like an executive position, it's like, oh shit, this play that everyone's going crazy over. It's really hot right now. Let's start.
And it felt to us like that was such an obvious move they were gonna do.
Oh my god, they have such a strong relationship with Lin-Manuel. Like, he's really hot right now. Where at that time, that was his peak. I feel.
Does he have the power to say no to them to make a film adaptation? Is that what it is? Did he stop them?
But I think if they actively pursued it, he wouldn't have said no. He says yes to worse shit all the time. Like,
they made a movie of In the Heights. Why can't they make a movie of Hamilton?
He wrote Scuttlebutt. He ain't above anything.
Oh my god. Oh my god. You just unlocked a terrible fucking memory. Fuck you for that. Why?
Scuttlebutt.
I mean, I agree that from an executive position, they should probably make a movie out of it. The thing, though, for me, creatively, I think Hamilton, as a stage play, is the perfect medium for it. Just cause...
Yeah. That's not really an argument, David. But that's
never
not
stopped Hollywood.
Yeah, basically. You know what's interesting? Do you think maybe maybe Disney changed their minds when the blowback to In the Heights happened?
Maybe.
Because there was some pretty nasty comments being made against like the people involved in the Heights, and I didn't even recall for what reason. Like, I mean, I remember the reason. It was colorism, and that's a very fair point to make. But I really felt that people were being like way too aggressive about that. Like, really, of all people are going to attack Rita Moreno and Lin-Manuel Miranda, like, you're not doing enough representation.
See, that's the cool thing about Hamilton. You can't go wrong because everyone was fucking white originally, and then everyone was like black and gay in the stage play. So it's like you could throw anyone in there as long as they got, and any argument would make sense, right? It's like, oh, this one's white. It was like, well, originally in real life that character was white. Oh, they're black, Asian, or something, and it's like, well, in the stage play, people are, like so many different denominations in the actual play. So I don't know. I feel like it's wide open and sort of criticism proof to a certain extent.
Yeah. Did you care for In the Heights, Peter?
Yeah.
Okay. I liked it. I don't love it. I think David likes it more than most of us here.
I remember you arguing that the songs were more memorable than Hamilton.
Me? Or
me?
Yes, you.
Me.
Yes.
I can name you more songs than in Hamilton, but
That's
I'm not a big Hamilton guy. I'm gonna come out as like not a big Hamilton person.
Not
so
either,
I've never been a Hamilton person. But my friend, you and I never agree on music.
How does a bastard? But okay, never mind.
We never agree on music of any kind. We don't. We can barely even agree.
How did you intro this episode?
Yes, but I also put a qualifier on there that you thankfully did not challenge. No, I put a qualifier. It was there. No. It was there. It was definitely there. It was just so subtly done. You didn't notice. Anyway, yeah, Joker Follow You Do. We'll see what it does, but it's interesting. People are making it's gonna make a lot less money opening weekend. This is what happens when you make a movie 5 years too late. Also, by the way, when Joker 1 came out, people still had an interest in DC films. I don't know if you've noticed lately, but the last couple of DC films, nobody wanted to go watch.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's definitely a combination, but there very much is the 5-year curse. Seems like 5 years is like the worst time to put out a sequel. It's like the exact amount of time where people, not long enough for nostalgia to kick in.
Unless you're Disney doing an animated movie, I guess. That may be the only exception to like the 5+ year. Because Inside Out came out 9 years after Inside Out 1.
That's 9 though. That's different. I think that's long enough for nostalgia to kick in.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay,
I'm saying 5 is that sweet spot where
it
it doesn't work. Not long enough for nostalgia and not quick enough for people to care. So
sometimes it can work though. With Into the Spider-Verse, it lived on Netflix for a few years, and then Across was so much bigger.
That was an exception because it grew in those 5 years. But if a movie comes out and it's a hit, and the next film doesn't come out till 5 years later, too long. It's been too long as far as the cultural zeitgeist is concerned and the audience. It just seems like. And of course, there's like every rule. There's exceptions. I'm not saying everything's 100%.
Right.
Exactly.
But I generally agree with that rule.
It's been proven more times.
Yes.
5 years is the sweet spot not to release a sequel.
Yeah.
Wait. If you hit the 5 year, if your movie's about to release in the 5 year mark, don't make it. Wait another 5 years, another 4 to 5, because then that's just long enough for a little bit of nostalgia to kick in, where it might come back.
But damn it didn't work out for Furiosa's case, though.
Yeah, but
It's a prequel.
There were other factors. It was
There were other factors, yeah.
It was a prequel of a side character, of a franchise that never made that much money to begin with.
Mhm.
Isn't
Like-
Furiosa the main character, though, of Fury Road, even though we don't want to say that?
Not to audiences, though. Not to audiences.
Yeah, okay,
Mad
sure.
Max is the guy, right? And it's not a sequel. It's not another Mad Max. It was a prequel side character where the original actress didn't even come back. So, yeah, I think that's a completely different ballgame.
Mhm.
By the way, real quick, I'm not gonna. This is not gonna take too long. I'm gonna go at least 60 seconds. It is comedy right now, as far as like comedic shows and comedic films, don't get enough recognition. I'm really happy to see that there was a lot of people pushing back against the fact that the Emmy people allowed The Bear to be a comedy when it's not, and then The Bear was winning all the awards. That completely blocked any comedies from winning. Just something to mention. I've never seen The Bear. I don't intend to see The Bear ever in my life. But it just seemed strange. And then The Life of Chuck, the new film by Mike Flanagan, winning the People's Choice Award at the Toronto International Film Festival. The last 13 movies that were nominated, that won here, were nominated for Best Picture. And then all of a sudden, all the Oscarologists immediately come out and stab Mike Flanagan in the face. Thoughts on that? I mean, I'm sure all of us, by the way, we're all
No
excited.
thoughts, because I think the story is just beginning.
In terms of what?
In terms of where the reaction to the film, right? Because we don't know. We don't have a distributor. We don't have a release date. We don't even know if it's going to release this year. As far you talk about Oscar prospects, we don't know. And then as far as whether the reaction were sort of mellow out, you know what I mean? Maybe it was sort of a gut thing where a lot of these stupid movie people were mad because their predictions were wrong. And they're like, they just had a stupid reaction to it. Like you said, even though they were sucking Joker 2's dick, and then it didn't do well, and then something like this film does well. Or it's something that's continued, and it's sort of like a narrative that's pushed hard as far as this film is concerned. I think the story is barely beginning as far as... And it can develop in a lot of different ways. Because, like, again, no distributor, no idea if it's even releasing this year. And if it's not releasing this year, would it even release as far as, like, Oscar season, you know, in that kind of push? Who knows?
I will say, though, all of us are big fans of Mike Flanagan. Like, his work is tremendous. And the idea that there's going to be not just a new film of his, but yet another Stephen King adaptation, I mean, that's just like a marriage that works so well. And so, and the things that I heard about the film and it being like a life-affirming movie, this is like one of my most anticipated of the year. Like, easy. So.
Yeah, for sure. By the way, speaking about being right, you got so pissed off with that original comment I made about you with this film, and I've just been proven right every second of every day since. So,
What comment?
When the first reviews came out, and I was like, "Oh, there's your Oscar loser."
Is that what you said? I thought you
Yes.
worded it differently.
No, I did not.
Yeah.
And then you threw a bitch fit, and then it's like, oh wow, looks like the exact comment I made is true. Yeah. Almost like there was a reason why I said it.
Last thing before Beetlejuice, Destin Daniel Cretton's directing Spider-Man 4, and apparently it's going to be a multiverse film in between Avengers 5 and 6. Is there anything
Kill
more
me.
to say? Exactly. Is there anything more to say than to kill me and fuck everybody involved?
I just will say it's funny the way people were like celebrating this, and it's like
Who was really? People were celebrating
I
this?
saw people being like, "Oh, we won! Fucking the fights in Shang-Chi are so awesome!" And it's like, this was such a standard Feige pick, like an in-house Marvel guy that's somewhat proven himself to make a box office that makes standard cookie cutter films, and it's the least interesting pick possible. I think the only less interesting pick was the guy that they had making not Star Wars, Spider-Man films before, which was Watts. So yeah.
Yeah, I saw people who were calling the San Francisco bus sequence as legendary.
You guys got to watch more movies, man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You gotta watch
that
more movies.
it's fucking terrible. We can move on to the movies now. You can have your synopsis out. The last time Peter and I were on the podcast, we had revealed that I had not seen the original Beetlejuice
Insane.
at all. Yeah. So of course I was gonna go back and gonna go and watch it before I would watch the sequel in theaters. It's not the film I expected. It's not the film I think anybody would expect when you're watching that for the first time. It's the kind of movie where things are happening and you're not quite sure it's where it's going or if it's even working, but then somehow by the end of it, it was like, how the hell did that end up being great and kind of perfect? Like, it's a lot of different Tim Burton sensibilities coming together. But damn it, it really does come together. I loved it. I love the interplay of the Maitlands, the Dietzes. I love anything with Ryder and, of course, Catherine O'Hara. But, I mean, the showstopper, Michael Keaton, I wasn't even aware how little screen time he even had. I had even forgotten he was going to be in the movie. But then when he made his like grand reveal, fuck, man. And there were moments that just like it killed me. Like when Alec Baldwin asks for his qualifications, and then he was like, "Well, you know, I was trained at Juilliard." And that whole thing, it's I don't know. It's a classic movie. These days, anyway, it's not as a classic movie, and I can definitely understand why, in many ways, it defined Tim Burton and it defined a whole generation. I've seen the film like 3 more times since then. It's a very watchable and a very enjoyable film, and just also really cool that something as artistic and absurd as that ended up being a box office success in its time. Because if something that unknown had come out today, nobody would watch it.
No, I love Beetlejuice. To me, it's like a perfect film.
Yeah.
It is why movies, you know. I just really, really love it. It might be my favorite Tim Burton film. Well, that's not true. A Nightmare Before Christmas, I think. Well, actually, I did the thing. He didn't direct it.
How much was he involved in that movie?
In
Nightmare Before Christmas.
He originally wrote, it was a poem that he wrote, the story of A Nightmare Before Christmas, and he came up with the characters and the idea, but everything else was Henry Selick. Selick directed the film.
It's a Henry Selick film, yeah.
It's a Henry Selick film.
I thought you were going to say Big Fish.
Big Fish is up there, but I think it's Beetlejuice, yeah. It's such like a perfect film to me.
And the Danny Elfman theme, like,
that's what I'm saying. It just fires perfectly on all cylinders. I would not change a thing. It's so unique and interesting and fun. And everything, I think, within the film works to contribute to make it.
It even
so
had
great.
musical sequences, and I'm like, wow.
Your favorite.
Yes, of course.
I know David still hasn't seen it, so.
Which one? Beetlejuice?
Yeah.
No, I've seen it. I mean, it's been a long time since I've seen it. But yeah, I remember enjoying it. I remember having fun with it. And just for sure loving all of the ghosty stuff whenever they go to like the other world or under, I don't know what it was. I can't remember.
Afterlife.
Oh yeah, Afterlife.
It's the Afterlife, yeah.
Okay. But yeah, I remember really enjoying that.
Which, by the way, that whole idea of the people in the afterlife having to walk eternity with the cause of death, like wearing the cause of death on them, it's very Tim Burton. And man, what a cursed idea for an afterlife. I'm just like...
That's the thing. It's such a fucked up idea of the afterlife, but it's played so much for laughs, you know,
especially like
that it works.
Especially when you figure out like how exactly they did, because there's some that you can, like that flat dude, you can guess that he got run over.
That's the fun storytelling. But the thing is, there's that old what do you call it? Legend that if you I can't remember where it's from, that like if you kill yourself you become a what do you call it, like a worker in the afterlife. I don't know what it's tied to.
I think it does get mentioned in Beetlejuice. It's like
yeah because the secretary she slit her wrists, And the guy that's flattened, I would assume that was like suicide, like he threw himself in front of a truck or something.
I always thought he got run over, but then I heard about that comment you made. But no, but like by an accident. I didn't think that he like purposely got in front of a truck or anything like that. But
yeah, you become like a service worker or something in the afterlife if you commit suicide. What is that tied to? Let me see.
It's an interesting idea. Also, of course, it being made in the 80s, the fact that Beetlejuice as a character has some a lot of non-PC tendencies is it's novel, of course, by our standards and our times. But just the sequence of him looking up someone's skirt, that wouldn't happen today. That just wouldn't fly. But it's pretty incredible, like how did this come out the year after or before Batman?
Before.
Wow.
The year after was Batman.
What a run right there. Yeah. And the movie looks really good too, so I can definitely understand why. And also I also understand now like why that's such a good like a Halloween movie to watch. Like the vibes are there.
For sure. Especially with 100%. The main character.
Yeah, like really easily. So Tim Burton is interesting. You know, he, in many ways, I feel like, is one of the most influential auteurs of all time. I feel like, to me, he and his work is like the first memory I have of being able to like recognize visually, oh, this is another one of his movies, because only he makes movies that look like this, like an auteuristic stamp. That was the first, as a younger viewer, the first of its kind that I was able to pinpoint and recognize and track who it belonged to. And also him being one of the rare auteur filmmakers whose style somehow you wouldn't know it by looking at it, but like I guess back then, but it cuts through to so many people that it is very much become mainstream, and has found many mainstream success. And he also has made some really some of the most influential films. I mean, his Batman film is seen as very influential. Alice in Wonderland. Peter and I had a whole discussion earlier on today about how influential that film was for the decade that came after it. Not for any good reason, but it had a lot of influence on, a lot of impact, shall we say. And then when you think about Tim Burton in recent years, they've been not great movies. And so when this one came out, Beetlejuice, and the reaction was like, guys, I think maybe he made something good for a change. That was basically the collective that I was seeing, and so that got me interested. Like, hey, a good Tim Burton film. How about that? You don't get too many of those anymore. We should go see it. And of course, I had to see the first Beetlejuice before I went to go and see the second one. And then I watched Beetlejuice, and I got to tell you, there are definitely elements of the film that I can understand why people would acknowledge them as flaws or issues. I didn't care in the least. I had a blast. Dare I say, some of the most fun I've had in a movie all year long. But before I get too far ahead of myself, Peter, please give us our Letterboxd description synopsis of Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice.
Oh, God, yeah, that's perfect.
Directed by Tim Burton. The ghost with the most is back. After a family tragedy, 3 generations of the Dietz family return home to Winter River. Still haunted by Beetlejuice, Lydia's life is turned upside down when her teenage daughter, Astrid, accidentally opens the portal to the afterlife. Starring Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara, Jenna Ortega, Justin Theroux, Willem Dafoe, and of course, the star, Monica Bellucci. Beetlejuice.
Guys, this was so much fun. I can't even begin to tell you. This is one of those movies where I was just like, I could not stop smiling at how much fun I was having. You can definitely feel in every aspect of the movie that Tim Burton came back to life. With this movie, and he was having fun, and he was trying things, and he was trying to do some stylistic choices, and I'm happy for as much success it's found in the mainstream. There are aspects of the film that are still quite niche. I mean, the idea of having a whole flashback sequence in black and white and with Italian subtitles is just so inspired. The idea that you would introduce your main, I guess, villain with, you know, a theme from the Bee Gees, and it being so awesome as well. I mean, and then of course, what was it? A Richard Harris song that I didn't even know existed, being like the main musical sequence toward the climax. Look, there are parts of the film perhaps that aren't working on all cylinders as others. It didn't matter to me. It was consistently funny. The comedy hit. Like it kept hitting in smaller ways and bigger ways. Everything that they did with Charlie. Now, understanding, of course, the actor couldn't come back, but you know what? Who cares? I'm glad they were able to incorporate the character in a way I didn't have to show his face, hilariously enough, but it still worked, and that bit was so funny. Everything with Catherine O'Hara was perfection here. She's even better in this than she was in the first film. Like, even the looks that she gives, perfect. Jenna Ortega slides in there quite seamlessly. I understand people had some issues with the characterization of Lydia. I get it, but I mean, I think Winona was still fucking fantastic. Justin Theroux is hilarious. Willem Dafoe. I mean, again, you can argue what the fuck was he doing in this movie? I don't care. He was in this and he was crushing it. Anytime that assistant handed him a coffee, 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10. And then, of course, to say nothing of Bob, the shining star of the film. And then
Oh my god, I forgot to mention Bob.
Bob, of course. And I mean, Michael Keaton. Come on. So many amazing moments in here. Is it perfect? No movie is. Is it great? Probably not. Beetlejuice is, though. Is it a great film? Probably not. I don't care. In my heart, it was great because I had so much fun. I laughed. Even the ending was just like, yeah, that's just kind of in line with what you were doing here. And there was even a twist in there I didn't see coming. Now, one of the twists Peter called, and I was like, yeah, I agree with that one, but I didn't think that twist extended to someone else, shall I say. Maybe he did. But then again, he's smarter than I am. So there's that. I'm not sure that was a review, so much as just gushing about it. But again, I don't know if my reviews have ever been coherent. Evidently, Peter says that my reviews are always rants anyway. So
I don't think you know how to speak other than in rants.
The film reminded me of why I love movies. And all movies should offer different kinds of experiences, and they shouldn't be alike. And dare I ever see something this year in the theater that was anywhere near what this was. Yeah. I love movies. Anyway, take it away, guys.
Peter?
Oh, me? Okay. You haven't seen it, David?
I've seen it.
Oh, okay.
Man. I better.
What?
I'm gonna have some words to say. Go ahead, Peter. Go ahead.
No. What's your issue? What's going
I
on?
swear to God, I better. Did you hate this movie, David?
No, I liked it.
Okay, just making sure because I was about to kill you. Go ahead, Peter.
God
Go ahead.
Damn,
All right.
chill.
Like,
Let people
come
have
on.
opinions. God damn.
This is coming from the person who was saying that his opinions is like the word of God itself. Like
I never said that.
Okay, but you meant it.
What? No. You're crazy.
Okay. Alright.
No, I had a lot of fun with this movie. I don't think I loved it as much as you did, but I think it's
Again,
just because...
let me be clear. It's not great. It's not perfect. It's not flawless.
Yeah.
I just loved my experience watching it. It's
I
not
was gonna
perfect
say,
by any means.
Well, see, I think that's the issue, is that I'm such a massive fan of that original film
Yeah.
that it's like, it's one of those things where it's like anything, it's like, well, I gotta hold it up because it's a sequel. I gotta hold it up to that original, and it's like,
Sure.
if I view this as a perfect film, this being a good experience, it's like,
Is it enough?
Is it enough? You know.
Yeah.
Most of the criticisms I see people throw at the movie, specifically the structure of the film and the writing and like the directions the character arcs take, I definitely agree with.
Sure.
I think.
Yeah.
But the film remembers what made the original work, you know, which it seems to be very hard for a lot of these legacy sequels to do, to remember even the fucking genre of the original film they made.
I share with you a clip about like two films in particular, Ghostbusters Afterlife and Hocus Pocus 2 were two examples of that.
Yeah, where it's like, it's so weird, where it's this film, it actually feels like a sequel. It doesn't feel like it exists to suck the original's dick. Like it actually feels like, oh no, we wanted to make a sequel to this film. And so much of the movie is an excuse for gags, but the great thing is the gags are really funny.
They're funny, yeah.
And they work. And the world is still so much fun and still really well realized. It
still looks good. And it still looks good.
Yes, you could tell Tim Burton had a lot of fun going back to being like, all right, how do I make this work the way I used to? You know what I mean? With like contorted sets and fun. I'll put it this way: when Beetlejuice has like a shocked face, it's a puppet, you know? It's not a CG exaggerated face, you know what I mean? And like you, I had a big smile the whole time I watched it. It was just a lot of fun. Keaton kills it, which is crazy that he's still able to come in and be this high energy character all these years later.
At 70 years old.
But just like, there's just so much stuff where it's like the whole thing with Bob. And then, yeah, like a lot of people are angry that they included characters and they're like, man, they should have just cut these characters out. And I have a different approach to where it's like, no, like these characters coming in and doing their gags is the point of the movie.
Yes. Like why that's so
whole
hard to
fucking
understand?
point. I would just have a slightly more. To me, it just comes down to the third act. If they just made it a little bit more cohesive as far as pulling all the threads together,
Right.
It would have. That's all you needed, really, I think. But no, you don't cut out Monica Bellucci. She's great. Just walking around sucking people's souls. Where's Beetlejuice? You don't cut out Willem Dafoe.
That's all you needed, and she looked great, and it was filmed amazingly too, and it was used to great effect. That's all you needed.
Her introductory sequence is worth it enough.
I literally like the LA was being like, that was amazing.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
Yeah.
I want to hear your thoughts on the film.
Yeah, no, I really did like it. I think for me the standouts were the mom, and
You mean Winona Ryder?
Winona Ryder. No, sorry, no. Her mom. Where's the mom?
Oh, Catherine O'Hara.
Catherine O'Hara,
Delia Dietz, I think. Yeah.
Catherine O'Hara and Defoe. To me, they were
Yeah.
they were the standouts. Obviously, you have Beetlejuice himself and everything, and like Peter said, like the fact that he was just able to slip right back into that character is incredible. But I feel like those two specifically had like the most fun just playing their character because they were just so ridiculous. I love it. But then yeah, I mean, you guys mentioned, or Peter, like this is a sequel to the original movie. It doesn't feel like it's being like it's forcing itself to be a Beetlejuice movie. It's like no, it is one.
You mean like a legacy sequel?
Yeah.
You know, like a classic. So that's the thing. It's like, not every sequel these days should be referred to as a legacy sequel. Like, I don't know. I struggle to call this a legacy sequel. It's a sequel.
Yeah, I guess to me, legacy. If it comes out like 30 years later, to me that's the definition of a legacy sequel.
Mm-hmm.
That's fine. Okay.
But then also like it has things that like I would, at least for me, I would point out as like, oh, it's trying really hard to like show hey, look, it's a sequel to this one. Remember, like I remember when in the beginning I pointed out one of Delia's statues was in the school. Like I pointed it to her, like, oh hey, look at that, it's the school, and you can point to that and go, oh yeah, they're trying really hard to like make references to the first one, blah blah blah. But the reason why I liked that and found it so fun is because, oh, I understand completely why that's there. She donated that for the school, for Ortega's character or something, make some kind of deal or something. And then we get a line. That's exactly what it was. And I'm like,
now
hilarious.
if the movie had been Ghostbusters Afterlife, it would have drawn attention to the statue particularly. And like, it would have been shot like with such reverence. It had some like this like, or like when Bail Organa stepped foot in Rogue One, and you had the
that's
Force
one of the worst
theme.
examples. Yeah.
God, I laugh every time. Every time I think about it, I laugh. It's just so hilarious.
It's just Jimmy Smits, and it's like the most.
And no one acknowledges him in the scene, like at all.
Why
happens.
the fuck would they? He's just some dude. Even within the realm of Star Wars, he's like a rich senator. Okay, like no one gives a shit. Yeah, that's one of the biggest compliments I can give the film. Is it never does that. There's no ridiculous, overly sentimental introduction to Beetlejuice. it's just he's back, and he's up to his antics again, and that's great. That's fun. There are some things where it's like, you could have cut, or I don't care about as far as like references to the original, but they're so minor and like who cares, it's never annoying. It's never in your face the way so many other films are. It's always tries to stay razor focused on being entertaining and fun and zany in the best ways that the original were.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if any references bothered me too much. I can only think of ones that, when they played Deo in the funeral.
Yeah, it's like,
the thing though is that
get it? That's the song that you heard.
The thing though is that I feel like I can come up with reasons as to why they would do that. Like you mentioned, the Rogue One thing. It's like, okay, why would you shoot that? It's like, okay, you clearly just wanted us to pay attention that this character is here. With this one, the Deo song on the funeral, I can piece together like he probably just remembers that to be like one of the most greatest days of his life, like an actual ghost haunted him, and just loves the song ever since. And that's how he wanted it to be in this funeral. He probably still sings that in front of Catherine O'Hara's character or something every once in a while, and that's how she wanted it to be in the funeral. Like, I can come up with so many reasons as to why that song is there, other than just, hey, it's a reference.
Yeah, like you're talking about, I think people, but the Alien Romulus references are pretty much just more, I think, overt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here we're just doing this again. What else? By the way, I love, well, maybe not love. There were some people, Grace Randolph, who were talking about like the elements that were not as PC. I don't give a fuck about that.
Neither was the original Beetlejuice.
I know, right? I mean, that wasn't PC whatsoever, but like, I guess there were some people who were upset about the Asian stereotype character.
Oh, well, yeah, that's very like, that was the one thing where I was like, oh yeah, Tim Burton is making this movie, because that's very like 80s, early 90s like humor. You know what I mean?
Or Danny DeVito saying "toots." Hey, toots!
I think that's just the way Daniel DeVito talks.
Yeah, probably. I love how when people in our theater, when I don't know if you heard it, but people were like reacting like "yay" when they realized it was him, Danny DeVito.
People love Danny DeVito.
Yeah,
yeah.
And I really think being on 15 freaking seasons of It's Always Sunny has maintained him in the cultural zeitgeist with younger audiences. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, what else of the film?
I'll say some criticisms.
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Throw them out there. The major one that everyone says is like, yeah, it doesn't pull together the way it should in the end. Like, I loved everything going on with Monica Bellucci's character. I love her intro. It's so great. It's so fun. And then, yeah, the way she's sort of... Her whole story could have just been... I get what people say when it's like... You kind of had the story for Beetlejuice, and Beetlejuice here, basically. Like, the whole two main storylines could have been... One of them, it's his ex is back to kill him, and he reaches out to Lydia for help, and then the other one is her daughter, gets trapped and taken into the afterlife by her boyfriend Ghost, and she has to turn to Beetlejuice to help her escape. That's actually, you could do 2 movies worths of story right there, and it probably would have fit better. But I actually think you could have got both to fit in this film if you just tied it up better at the end.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because it's like you build up all this shit with Monica Bellucci's character, and then just literally nothing at
Just
the end.
dies.
Yeah.
She's just
Yeah.
she's there for a second. The worm gets him. And the way they try to tie them together doesn't make sense. They try to say like, well, hey, because he's trying to get away from his ex-wife, if he gets married, that would help him, I guess, stay away from her or keep her away. So that's his reason for helping Lydia get her daughter back. But they showed that he was already still in love with her after all these years and wanting to marry her. So he already had a reason for wanting to marry her.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like her character literally adds nothing story-wise to the film.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I know it's not that kind of film. I would not cut her out of it. I prefer to have her in because everything with her in it is awesome. I just think if they would have tied it together better at the end, it would just work for me, and I would be able to just enjoy it more. And then yeah, even with the cop characters, but I actually think it kind of works as part of the gag that they're just completely inconsequential in the end. Like they show up and they're like freeze, and then they just freeze, and then they add nothing to the climax. But I actually think that kind of works as part of the gag, so I actually don't think that's too bad.
No, yeah. I find them to be better just because of that. Because
you
think they're gonna save
better.
the day or something, but it's like no, they're completely useless in this situation.
Yeah,
and I don't mind that the main characters
That's the
are the
joke,
ones that
yeah.
solve the whole thing.
That's the
like
joke.
that's funny.
Yeah.
The thing though is that you building up Monica Bellucci's character to be a villain, to Beetlejuice himself, but then doesn't really do much damage to him at all, and just dies.
It's like he's terrified of her, and you really build her as this threat, and then she's very quickly dispatched by the big ol' worm. It's like they really needed to go over the third act again. Maybe they felt the movie was running too long, but I also think there's maybe one too many scenes with like getting to the point, you know what I mean? Like the build up of like getting the whole family back together and then doing the funeral and then like showing the relationship between her and her mother, and then her and her grandmother, and then Justin Theroux, and then like the town. There's a little bit too much of that, especially because like the town and all that stuff doesn't really factor into the film that much at all. I thought maybe they would have like a big blowout thing with the town when his whole Beetlejuice's office like escapes into the real world. But that's literally just like a quick gag, and then they never even come back to it.
The priest, a gag. It seemed like he was hitting on Delia's character. That kind of didn't go anywhere. It just seemed like they were getting, they were like almost getting along and all that, and it's like, is there something gonna happen here? But then nothing happened. Ended up.
Yeah, then nothing. So there is actually some meat on that bone that I think you could cut to sort of make room for a longer third act. But yeah, that's just kind of my criticism.
I wonder though. You mentioned this to me, Peter, about the possibility of another movie.
Oh, for sure. Well, when you name it Beetlejuice, you're kind of implying a Beetlejuice. And then, yeah, especially the ending. That's such a weird ending. It's such an awkward, weird ending. But it's so over the top and stupid, I go with it. You know what I mean? And ridiculous. It almost feels like Tim Burton did it out of spite. A little bit. Like, fuck happy endings, kind of. Or these, like, fairy tale endings. It kind of comes off that way. But yeah, it's also very open-ended, and there's no like finality to it, so to where I could see them like going for a third one, because the original ending, there's real finality to it, you know. I love the ending of the original Beetlejuice, where it's like shake, 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 Zamora, and it's this like really big, fun ending. Whereas here, it's like a weird, fucked up demon baby gag. But it's so funny. I dig it to a certain extent. I saw an interview where Jenna Ortega's like, as a woman actress, you're gonna play mothers, you know. That's sort of part of the gig. And she's like, I'm so happy that my first quote unquote baby was evil demon demon juice baby, basically. I was like, yeah, that's funny. Yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if a third film is possible. I know the money will definitely be there because it made a whole bunch of money, obviously, at the box office. And I also thought it was incredible how Tim Burton was able to make the film under $100 million because originally HBO or Warner's, whoever I mentioned on the last podcast, they were thinking of giving this like a $200 million budget, but for streaming. But because Tim Burton wanted it in theaters, they had to bring it down to $100 million.
But also, and it's one of those things where it's like, it's all about, you don't see that money on screen because it's that 200 million. You know what it is? That's the salaries for the actors.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that shit's so high. Because I saw that what he was able to do was get them to negotiate a lower upfront, but then a bigger back pay, you know?
Yeah.
And that's usually the go-to to get high paying actors to take smaller jobs. It's like, all right, because you're basically betting on the film, right? I'll take a smaller salary, but if it's a hit, you know, I'm gonna see it on the back end. Because I was gonna say, Beetlejuice doesn't need to be a 200. A Beetlejuice film doesn't need to be 200 million. 100 million. With today's inflation, 100 million is about where you would want it. It makes sense to me. And I think that works in the film's favor.
Yes, yeah.
It doesn't get off the rails being like too extravagant. You know what I mean? It's perfect. I think you get really fun sets and creature designs, but it still remains intimate in that way. So yeah, and then films just have so much better life in theaters than going to streaming. So much shit just drops on streaming and no one gives a shit.
Any other thoughts before we wrap it up today?
Nope.
Yep, and with that yawn, I think it's time to go to bed. Thank you all very much for staying tuned here on our show for Red Spotlight. We'll come back to you next time with, I'm not even sure what the hell we're seeing next at this point, but whatever it is, we'll see it, and we'll come back here and talk about it. Stay tuned under our Red Spotlight for more content and more, and we will see you next time, guys. Bye-bye.
Bye.